So everybody from the president to the people to banks and Wall Street all hope that the Fed can handle the inflation problem, and the Fed's goal is to bring inflation down without causing a recession. However, what Jamie Dimon is saying is be prepared for anything, because we're going to see a hurricane and we don't know how bad it's going to be. He goes into a little bit more detail. What he says is right now, jobs are plentiful, wages are going up, and consumers are spending. So that's the sunny side of the economy right now. However, the lower income folks are getting hurt more than everybody else. And what he's saying is that right now in the Chase Bank accounts, because he's a CEO of Chase Bank, they have about $2 trillion worth of savings, meaning people have a lot of cash saved up, which he says is good. And he says that, at least for the next 6 to 9 months, this will hold people over and things are okay. However, it's hurting more of the poor than everybody else. But we'll see what happens after 2022. And, the one thing that I want to add to that is that, people's savings accounts who are not on the lower end of the spectrum, the middle class, and I guess not even really the middle class, a lot of the upper middle class and the wealthy might have bigger savings accounts. But just remember that, most people's savings don't stretch as far as they did a year ago or 2 years ago, just because of what inflation is. So that was the warning that JP Morgan Chase Bank put out yesterday through Jamie Dimon. And then secondly was Janet Yellen. And this one, this one is a really interesting one, because Janet Yellen came out and she talked about how she was wrong about inflation, that she misjudged what inflation was. And we went really deep into this, into Market Briefs, which is the financial newsletter that I created. And essentially what happened was, if you go back to 2021, when President Biden first took office, he passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. Now, he wasn't the first to do that. President Trump also passed multi-trillion-dollar stimulus bills. But then in 2021, that was when President Biden came into office. And then Janet Yellen came out publicly and said in 2021, the beginning part, that one, inflation is not a problem, that we don't need to worry about inflation. And second, she also said that this $1.9 trillion stimulus bill that they're working to pass will not cause more inflation, that it can't cause more inflation. In fact, it will cause an economic boom, which will make inflation a little bit better. So that's what they said in 2021. And then as of the last 24 to 48 hours, Janet Yellen came out publicly and said, sorry, I was wrong. What she said was, quote, I didn't fully understand the circumstances, and there were unanticipated shocks that worsened the situation. So she did not understand the full impact of what the stimulus would cause, and did not understand the full impact of what inflation was. And because, according to her, nobody could have seen it coming, that's where she was wrong about inflation. And that's why now the government and the Fed want to get more serious to fight inflation. And that's why they say that inflation is a top priority now. I mean, it's a little bit, the reason why I'm laughing is just because it's kind of silly. Like, you are, one of the top, supposedly top economists, financial people in the world, and not understanding or anticipating what factors would cause inflation versus not cause inflation. I mean, at the end of the day, inflation at its root is when you print more dollars without producing any more wealth. I mean, when you're just printing dollars without producing more wealth, more assets, more production, like in 2020 and 2021, we weren't working, we weren't producing much, but we were printing trillions and trillions of dollars. When you do that, the value of each individual dollar goes down, which causes the price of things to go up. And it's interesting that, a lot of people, at least the higher up economists from the Fed to, Treasury sector people in the government, they don't realize it until now, like when inflation is past 8%, while regular people have been feeling it for over a year now. And, if you go look at the incomes of some of these people, like Janet Yellen made, I think $5 million or something in the last year. So, when I think she's worth like tens of millions of dollars as well. When you're worth millions and millions of dollars, sure, maybe you don't feel the impact of it the way that somebody else does, but regular people have been feeling the impacts of inflation for a long time. And this is where now they're saying, okay, we need to get more serious, but how do we fight inflation? And so, what you want to understand is that the government and the Fed are separate entities, and the Fed is now working to fight inflation by raising interest rates and by selling off the balance sheet, while the government says that they want to fight inflation. However, instead of actually doing things to fight inflation, They're just saying it's up to the Fed, because the government can fight inflation. I mean, they can cut back spending, which would reduce the national deficit, which would reduce spending by the government, because right now the government is spending more money than they bring in. That's why we have a $30 trillion national deficit. And the way that they fund this additional spending is by going to the Fed and telling the Fed to give the government money. Now, the Fed doesn't have money. They have to print that money. So anytime the government spends more money that they don't have, well, the Fed has to print the money to do that. So these are inflationary things, and the government still wants to spend more money. Like they were just talking about a couple of days ago, how the government wants to pay off $10,000 for the student loans for everybody with student loans. All these things have costs, and that cost is inflation. Somebody has to pay the price of it. Either you're going to raise taxes, you're going to cut benefits, or you're going to cause inflation. Like somebody has to pay the price in some way, and these are the things that you have to be aware of. Obviously, maybe we can't control what happens in the government, but you can control what you do with your finances right now. Now, of course, if you want to learn more about this, we talked about this in Market Briefs. It's a free financial newsletter that I created where my team breaks down the top finance and business news into a fun, witty, easy to read email. It's less than 5 minutes every morning. It is a fun email. I promise you are going to love reading Market Briefs every single morning. I've gotten a ton of emails from people saying that this is part of their new morning routine, to read Market Briefs, to understand what's going on in the stock market, to inflation, to the real estate market. It's a completely free newsletter, and I will put the link to how you can join Market Briefs down in the description below. This brings me to the third topic, which is the Fed, and now selling off their balance sheet, because for the last number of months now, the Fed has been talking about how they want to bring down inflation. And the first thing that they've been doing is raising interest rates. That's why mortgage rates have gone up from 3% in the beginning part of 2022 to where we are today at 5.5%, something around 5.5%. So mortgage rates have gone up so much because the Fed is working to raise interest rates, which makes borrowing money more expensive. And the reason why they do that is so people borrow less money. It's so institutions and companies borrow less money, because now when you borrow less money, more dollars enter our economic circulation. But the second side to that coin is the Fed now wants to sell off some of their assets, because over the last couple of years, the Fed built up this balance sheet of $9 trillion or so. And remember, the Fed doesn't have cash reserves. They don't have $9 trillion, right? They don't generate income. They don't generate tax dollars. The Fed instead can just print that money. So the Fed printed $9 trillion or so to buy up these assets, which include treasury bonds. That's money that they loan the government. They buy up mortgage-backed securities. In 2020, 2021, they bought corporate bond ETFs, meaning they essentially lent money to corporations. Again, through what? Through printing money, causing inflation, and then giving this money out. Now, as of June 1st, the Fed is working to sell off some of these assets. So they're going to start dumping some of their treasury bonds. They're going to start dumping some of their mortgage-backed securities. They've already been selling their corporate bond ETFs. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this shorter clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And if you're interested in learning more about how to invest your money in the stock market, our team put together an amazing guide that will walk you through how to invest your money in the stock market, what the stock market is, different stock market strategies, and how to build wealth in the stock market. This guide is completely free when you sign up for our daily newsletter. So if you want to read this guide, all you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.